everybody, and welcome to Nostalgia Bit. This is episode 52, and today we're talking about something quite fun and special and unique, actually. I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Cooper Britton.
And this is where I hijack this. We're going to be introing this episode, but this is actually my episode.
Yeah.
Today, I am joined by not just my today. He is tonight, Matthew. He is not my co-host. It is writer-director George Sheard of the short film Small Talk. Today we are going to be talking about George's short film, university short film, student film, Small Talks.
Yeah,
it's an exciting one.
I'm
very excited for this.
It's been a long time coming.
It's been in the diary for quite a while. It's been moved quite a few times in the diary.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
But today we are going to... we will start from the very beginning for whether you are joining us from the screening that George has done by the time most people are probably seeing this. Whether you've watched it on YouTube, whether you've seen it in the past, or you're coming straight to Nostalgia Bit and you're going to go watch it after this.
Yeah.
George, would you please explain to everyone what is Small Talks? Where did it come about? What is it for?
Well, so it was my basically uni graduation film. But one that, I mean, you might have noticed I'm not at uni anymore. So it's one that's taken a while to kind of complete, but it's basically my sort of writer-director debut, if you'll call it that. It's a film that was put together over quite a short period of time, actually. But like all projects that I tend to work on, I will sit and be so horrendously anal about getting it as perfect as possible and not complete shit. So I've taken like a long time to make sure that it's like the best it can be before like actually releasing it, which is why it's taken 3 years. So we'll talk about that. But
so the version that people are seeing on YouTube or have seen at the premieres and stuff, that's a different version than what you submitted for.
Final. Quite different, actually. Like there's a lot of differences. And we can talk about that. So for those who are just sort of tuning into this episode without any idea of what's going on, this film will be released on YouTube tomorrow, Friday 28th. So you can check it out then and come back and listen to this. So you can listen to this as a precursor to that.
There'll be a link somewhere.
There'll probably be a link. We'll link it up. And it's the sort of final version. As I say, like I'm a perfectionist with stuff, and it's why I stopped making as much YouTube content. Is because I look at it and go, "Oh, I need to like top what I've done before, and I need to do better and better and better. And if I can't, I'll not do it." And with this film, it's it got tarnished by the deadlines of uni, and then like by the time it had come out of like festivals and stuff like that, I watched it and was like, I really want to change like half of this. So then I worked with some brilliant people who I'll mention later on in the podcast who owe a lot to getting this to where it is now, in terms of fixing up everything that was possible. So I took apart sound and music and changed up a lot of different stuff. And the final version is the best version of the film that exists and is the final version. There has to be a line where you go,
there has to be a line it's done.
This is the final version now.
Yeah. So obviously you've talked about what you want to do, like kind of going into this newer version that you've released, but I want to go right back to the very, very, very beginning. Before
you're going like full like interview. I love this. It's crazy.
Before the lights, camera, action, before even the script was written.
Okay.
I want to go back to the very start of where did it come from? What was the inspiration? Because I didn't do a media degree, so I don't know what the gist. I don't know what the gist is for these final projects. Do you get given a prompt line? Do you get given you have to do it based on a certain theme? Where did it come from?
On our course,
what was the inspiration for
on our course, we were given fuck all. Right. So, and I will
it's just from your mind palace
to an extent. 100%. All my no, it's not all my vision, and I can't like claim that. But there is a. So with our course at uni, I did contemporary media practice, which isn't just films, isn't even films really. It's mostly like photography and sort of like artwork and kind of just being what I like to call arty-farty. I was also in uni throughout COVID. I started uni in September 2019, so you can kind of piece that together. That before the end of my first year at uni, everyone had been like evacuated home basically, and I was like living with my parents and having to like dial in. Second year, even though I moved back to London, there was no in-person stuff for our course.
Yeah,
I went in one day in my second year, which is appalling. But again, regulations and all that sort of thing. So despite the fact that I went into the course with a lot of expectations about things that we could make and the films and projects, especially moving image stuff, which I was more interested in learning from, I didn't really get as much of that. And it's not really something I got a lot of experience in, which is a shame. So when it came to third year, and we were in person a little bit more, and sort of restrictions just got sort of wavered a little bit in 2021, end of 2021, going into 2022.
So that'd been my first year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it will. So it was that, and it was as restrictions were wavering a little bit, and they were basically like, "This is your final project," and the that whole third year is essentially working on your final project, and it could be whatever you want to be. So some people did artwork installations, some people did documentaries, some people did films like myself, not many of us. The starting point was basically just pull together a small like team of people who you're interested in working with. You could put stuff on like a notice board, I think it was, and it was like whatever interest. And for me, I put on a thing basically going, I want to make a short film. I want to make a short film that is low key and easy and not super adventurous, but good. That's all I wanted to do. And I had, I think, literally one other person come to me, and who was called Paolo, and he was the producer of the film. So he came to me, and we kind of worked together on this. And the initial concepts went through a bunch of different versions, and as you do with just because you're trying to come up with something, right? You're trying to come up with just the basic concept of what works. Now, with me, I noticed that a lot of people on different courses, or just anyone who's making films at uni, and you'll probably have seen this as well, like just the student film market generally, the one mistake I think you can make is to be too adventurous. You are not Disney. You can't make massive CGI projects, or you need a lot of dedication for that, and you need a lot to be able to sell that. Now, realistically, we weren't the film course. We weren't the university's little baby, so we weren't given as much funding, and ultimately we were aware of that. So one thing I wanted to do was make it something low key, 2 characters, small setting, and at first it was some sort of a bit more lighthearted, I think. So at first it was very much like an Inside Number 9 idea, where it was some sort of a thing with a taxi driver, but it's all filmed from the perspective of like a dash cam, and it's like you see 3 different passengers throughout the night, and it tells like a story. And then that idea just kind of slowly turned into something more of serious and more of like a traditional film. And that's where the idea for this was sort of birthed, and just sort of those various conversations. There's no point where someone goes, this is the film, this is what it is. Because with everything, and at least what I've felt with this film is that even with the 2 of us going back and forward, there's no one person who's responsible for the idea. It's very much an amalgamation of those conversations, and the final version of the film is not decided until someone goes, done. Everything is up in the air until that point, basically.
So how long was the pre-production and the kind of the script writing phase? How many drafts did you go through, or did you not? Were you just adding to it and stuff like that?
No, there were drafts. There were definitely drafts, and I definitely actually wrote separate, 2 or 3 separate versions of the final film, depending on location. So that's another thing as well.
Okay, yeah.
But the process, I think, for writing, probably, I want to say it took about 3 or 4 months ish. Once the idea was kind of settled of, right, it's going to be about mental health, and it's going to be in that sort of ballpark, and it's going to try and take you by surprise a little bit. That's kind of what I wanted to go for. Something that I'd studied prior, and something that I was really keen to kind of emulate, because I'd seen really great examples, but very few examples in media, in TV and film, where the sort of middle-aged male mental health topic was tackled well. Ted Lasso is one of them. I think that's very well handled, and one of the first times I watched something where I was like, damn, the representation. And funnily enough, that's around the end of 2021 was the first time I was watching Ted Lasso, so probably a little bit of that in my mind was like...
Yeah, like subconscious,
Yeah, like that was a really good representation of like mental health, and then I go on to write a mental health short film a couple months later. I don't think there's any surprise in that. Another one that came to mind was a British drama called Cold Feet, which years ago they had a subplot.
I recognise
that. Cold Feet. So it's kind of long running. I don't think it's on anymore. But one of the characters basically goes through a subplot in a series where they have depression and they think about killing themselves. And it was a massive TV moment at the time that was talked about. So I kind of like took inspiration from that, but then also there's not many other examples of that. And I think that what people expect when they get a mental health film or TV show or whatever, the common standard tends to be like a teenage girl.
Yeah.
Mostly. You get stuff like 13 Reasons Why, which dominate like the media and all that sort of thing. It's like that. So my mind was, let's take that, and then let's take a sort of middle-aged male character and kind of spin that on its head, where you don't even imagine that he's got stuff he's had in the past, like he's gone through. Your focus is on the girl, and the whole point of it for me is to kind of spin that on his head. So that was kind of the main. Once that was locked in, the script writing was, I think, relatively easy. You just pull from places that you know, and like I've had a few times where I've definitely felt like down in low places and stuff that during uni, during COVID. I think a lot of people can resonate with that.
I think especially during the time that you did this as well, coming off the back of COVID, being this massive push for mental health, like it's never perfect, like not a perfect situation, but it's like it's perfect time, like it's a great thing to do around that time.
Definitely felt the right thing to do and felt the right thing I wanted to say. And I loved, you know me, I love all sorts of genres, and I love like horror and comedy and all that sort of thing, and I'd love to like write that as well. But for that, I think at the time it felt like the right thing for me to write from where I was at mentally. I was like, I feel like writing about this and writing characters that are put in this situation, but also kind of come to terms with it and kind of, you know, something positive off the back of it. That was quite important, I think, to me. So, I kind of like break down the story as well for people who, again, may be watching this or listening to this before the film comes out. It's a story about, I would always say it's a story about serendipity, right? You've got basically a young girl who is taking a taxi to get away from her house in the middle of the night, unclear as to why. And the taxi driver notices that signs are off, something's up. The taxi breaks down, they part their separate ways, and then they bump into each other again at a small roadside cafe where they kind of just have a conversation. They sit down and they talk. And it very much, you toe the line between the adult kind of explaining and understanding everything that this teenager's been through. She's like, I've heard this before. Like, you know, adults telling me that they understand when they don't at all. Yeah. But actually the idea is that he has, and he does understand, and he has been through similar things, and that connection and bridge between these two characters who are different ages, different generations, different people completely. The sort of bridge of that one similarity between them sort of helps them both on that evening before they part their separate ways and probably never see each other again. That's, in my mind, the focus and the general gist of the story for me. Yeah.
Talking about the two main characters, obviously the taxi driver and the younger girl, how do you go about securing your cast? It's obviously very limited cast. How do you go about securing these two cast members? Where do you find them? What's the... Because again, I do a media degree, so I have no idea how this all kind of works and what the rules and regulations and stuff for.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a tricky one, and people don't usually talk about like pay and stuff like that on these things. I would like to, because I would like to point out that we didn't really pay them. That we covered their transport, and they were fucking brilliant. The pair of them, Holly Horrell
like phenomenal.
and Charles Doherty, both of them, And funnily enough, both the first people we auditioned for each role.
Really?
Yeah, I've got the other auditions. We basically, there's plenty of websites that you can do that are free. You don't want to do ones that have agency sign-ups and costs and all that sort of thing. You sign up, you put the 2 roles on there that you're casting for, and you just get auditions from people. And when you just get, you get applications of interest, and then you reach out to who you like to audition. We did it on Zoom, just because it was easier at the time, and it just saves everyone's time and effort. And we just gave them a script extract, and I would just read the other part over the call. So I sat with Paolo, the producer, and the actor on the call, and we just kind of run through it, and we do it twice. So we do it. This was just my method. There's no like thought to it. It's just very much a case of going, what's the vibe of them as people? Can like I work with them? I'm quite an anxious person, and it was my first film. I hadn't directed prior to this, so it was a bit of a daunting task to audition people, because in my mind there's that like sort of imposter syndrome thing where I'm going like, oh, what right have I got to judge these actors who have had more experience in the industry and professional experience acting than I have like directing? Who am I to judge? But then also, it's your project, so you have to kind of fake it so you make it and do that. But they were both brilliant, and we auditioned some brilliant people as well who didn't make it, but they were excellent. But Holly and Charles, incredible, like really great, like from the get-go. It was a really interesting process. So we did that audition thing back and forward, and then we decided, we picked them. Did you know in the moment, or was it kind of like going back and did you like record it? Did you have like, obviously you said you got? I've got the recordings of the auditions, like the actual like Zoom call.
So you
recordings.
Went back and kind of rewatched them and was like, this is definitely.
Yeah, we'd sort of go back and go, that didn't work or whatever. And you just sometimes you get a vibe when you're doing the audition as well. It's like just what the character is in your mind and what the character is in their mind just isn't matching up, and that's fine. Like they're kind of, and also as well giving them an opportunity to ask questions. That's also a thing. Is like, actors, they want to know about the character, they want to know about the inspiration, they want to know about this. And if they're interested in the role and they ask about these things, then in my mind it's an easier like sell, because I'm like, well, you're actually interested in the thing that I've written here. You're actually interested as to the character and all that sort of thing. And I had very, very good conversations with both of the actors about like that throughout the process of the film. And then towards the end, about a week or so before we started filming, I did like a call with myself, Holly and Charles, the 2 actors, and we just did a full read through of the script twice through, allowing them opportunities to ask questions and also make amendments, which can be quite precious as a writer, to hold on to what you think is the film and what you want it to be. However, for lack of a script editor on set or in the production, it was very much myself and the producer having an opportunity to work with actors again who are sort of like, I personally don't feel like that's something that I would say. Like, that doesn't sound natural to me. Can we like tweak it to this? And realistically, 9 times out of 10, it's like, because it's the same. Like, what's the whole thing? It's like, I'm right. Something as a new writer, this is the first thing I've written as like a film. So every character, the more experience you have writing, the less the characters feel like your voice and they feel like someone else's. And this is being the first film, is like, they are quite attached to me, I think. And I needed to separate that. So the lines that they sort of shift and change, and I'm like, okay, that's then more detached from me, and I like that. And if it feels more comfortable to them, there'll be a better performance. And I also want them to feel respected as well. That's
did you
another
know,
thing.
like, did you have conversations with people beforehand, or was this just like, I think this is a good idea to do just before we start filming and do these tweaks and do these minor adjustments? Or did someone say to you, a good idea is to do this before you start shooting?
No, I wanted to, like, we had to do a read-through because they'd not met.
Yeah.
So I wanted them to do a read-through on Zoom, and then they'd meet on set. But I wanted to do that, and I think when we have those conversations and they're going, I feel like I would say it like this, and it would be very minor. It would be so minor. The point of so long as the intention behind the line is there, it doesn't matter what is said. It's so long as
Yeah.
what is trying to be conveyed is conveyed. I have no problem
Yeah.
with that. If it feels more natural to them, great.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
I
like
think
no,
it's
but yeah.
I think this is coming from interviewer to actual person who works in production.
Mm.
I think it's one thing that I think a lot of like young directors, actors, and stuff need to, and even writers need to kind of shake a little bit. Sorry, that the script is sacred. The script is what the whole foundation is built on. However, it's not so sacred that it can't be altered.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many times
to, like,
where
tweak some stuff.
scripts get altered whilst you're shooting. Scripts get altered. Like, shooting scripts don't come out until at least a week before you start filming. Like, that's the kind of situation. So as much as it is a sacred text, it's what this whole thing you're doing is based on. You should never feel uncomfortable, never feel afraid. Or on the other flip side, you should never be so defensive about changing stuff and having stuff changed on the fly, and maybe letting a little bit of improv slip in here and there.
Yeah,
maybe
100%.
these words change and the way this is pronounced, and so, like all that kind of stuff.
There's a great bit of improv in this film, which has made the final cut, which I love. Which is literally just, I think it was scene 2, and they're outside the car, and Chloe is sort of kicking off and like angry and sort of emotional and kind of like in a bit of a panicky state. And Charles, bless him, had a line where I think he says like sorry, but he didn't say it like quick enough. And Holly comes in and just goes, "This is the bit where you're supposed to say sorry." And I'm like, and I remember watching it going, "Well, that's perfect."
Yeah.
Just little things like that, which you would never be able to tell, but I don't think it was written by that off the top of my head. And I think it's like that, having that skill to be able to on the fly push and adapt and all that sort of thing. Like, I learned a lot from them while making this, and I have to give a lot of credit to them for that, because their performances not only were brilliant, but they were very fluid and they worked together so well, and they both had very different techniques in preparing as an actor as well, which I'll probably get into, but they're very, they're both very good, and like moments like that you have to sort of go, and then some cases where it's like, I'm not 100% sure about the changes, we'll do one take with your idea, one take with mine, and we'll just do that, and we'll get coverage, so that when it comes to the edit, if it turns out that actually that is better, then we've got it.
So obviously we've got the cast members, we have an extensive crew that goes on behind the camera. I've got the list of the crew here. So you have yourself, Paolo, Guillermo, Josh, Chris, Joel, Tanya, Z, Hao-Jan. I apologize if I'm butchering any of these names. Erica, Rose, Leonardo, and Hessa. There are so many people who go into the behind the scenes of making these things. How do you go about securing the rest of your crew then? So obviously you're saying Paolo was attached from the start.
It's a hard one. It's a really hard one.
All your camera department, all your ADs, like all that kind of stuff.
So this is, I think, a relatively, like, I don't want to say run and gun, but I think the most interesting thing about this is a lot of the people in this crew were not on our uni course. We're not even in our year. They were just, we did not have crew.
Yeah.
And we didn't know many people. And this is the problem, is that, like, everyone's working on their big graduation films, so you have to approach, like, the year below in terms of experience and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I think, Guillermo was on our course as a DP, and I had I think he was just expressed interest immediately, and we worked with him, and I had really good chats with him in regards to like how the film should look. And there's a lot of stuff like on set as well, where although traditionally a director doesn't get as involved with that, and it should be like, you do that, I do this, I like that we had a bit of a collaborative creative process. Like, I remember even before the film was made, we went to the so there's the final, like, basically the majority of the film is taking place at a cafe. That cafe, we went to that during the day at one point, just during uni. We went and had a coffee there or something, and we just sat down, and we sat at the table that I wanted to film at, and we were like, right, this is what I'm thinking. This is, and I basically just told him and walked him through the exact blocking of what I think the scene should be, and then he's able to take that on board and really visualize it. And I think it was a really good two-way process, and a lot of like ideas and stuff that he's cooking with.
That's a really good thing to do. Some of the best like director DOP combos are the ones that are almost one person. Like, they are so fluid together. Like, they just see it together. Doing all that stuff beforehand, like, not just rocking up on a location and being like, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? Like, giving them time to process and everything like that. They're some of the greatest combos of the directors and DOPs who just constantly work together and just know each other.
Yeah, 100%. Tanya was a great first AD as well. The best role of a first AD is just to keep the director in check, and I think she did a great job of that. I think if the first AD and the director aren't getting on each other's tits a little bit, that's
the first AD is should be the most hated person on the floor.
And I don't mean that
they're doing the job wrong. Not as in hate, as in, oh my god, awful person. But it's like
on the day it's annoying. You want to, you're way back and forward. So for those who don't know what first AD is,
you are the villain.
I tell you what, I'll let you explain. You tell the audience.
The first AD is basically like the first AD is the person who makes sure that you stay on schedule and you stay on track. You can. Well, I don't know. Did you do? This is later question. Did you 1 shooting day, 2 shooting days? Like what?
That's a good question. There are stories about that. I think 5.
Oh my god!
Yeah, like you'd be surprised. Yeah,
wow.
5 days. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the 30 AD is the person who does all. They do the majority of the scheduling. It's all about. They basically interact with every department, being like, "What's the crack here? What's the crack here? What's the crack going to be here?" They decide what the running length of the day is going to be, what lunch is going to be, all that kind of stuff. They're basically there to if people start to take too long, or stuff starts to kind of fall behind and roll behind. They have to be the one to be like, right, we need to pick this up.
Yeah,
start moving, get cast moves. They're all about getting cast back and forth. Like, that is the AD department. That's kind of like their whole role. The lower roles are about like more to do with cast, but the first AD is basically to keep the ball rolling, essentially.
Yeah, and then their job is to sort of annoy the director and vice versa. Like the director.
So when I say they're the most hated person,
they're the
most hated person on the floor, they're one of the. They obviously are creatively minded, but they're one of the only departments that isn't like mainly focused on the creative side of it. They're more about the ball rolling. So typically the first AD doesn't really mind sacking off the creator to be like, oh, we need to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Because time's money. And the moment you start going over time, then that's when you're starting to,
Yeah, I mean, that's it. So it's like, as a director, you want to get as much coverage as possible. You want to have as many takes as possible. You want to keep going. The first AD will be like, no, you've got enough for this.
No, when you move on.
And sometimes that's the right, and sometimes that is the right call. Sometimes that's annoying, and they're like, right, one more, please, one more. We'll get. I guess we'll get into this in a minute because I want to talk a little bit more about the crew. But this was originally a 4 night, because it was night shoots as well. So it was
then I assumed they were night shoots.
It was originally 4 nights that then became 5 nights. There's no joke in there. And there was a lot of stuff where it's just, in terms of experience level, I wasn't there, and there's just some things that you just cannot predict that just kind of go on, but everyone was incredibly professional about it. And I
5 night shoots is fucking brutal, by the way.
Yeah, 5 night shoots is insane. Brutal. Yeah, that was
it's brutal.
It was brave of us, very brave of us. A lot of late nights.
The most I've ever done is 3.
But yeah, it's tough. It's tough as well when you're directing it. It's tough because you sort of have to get everything. But for the most part, like the crew, I mean, actually for pretty much all of it, I think everyone held their ground and did basically exactly what they needed to do. We didn't have a traditionally like massive crew. We didn't have a full crew. There's a lot of sort of roles that were missing, had to be doubled up. The cam op guys
student
were great
anyway.
Yeah,
I think that comes with that. You kind of have to absorb other departments and other roles.
Yeah, the great. I will say, shout out to the cam op guys who absolutely came through on these days, because we had like a 4K camera booked out from uni, which is great, and we were able to use that. And then one of them on the day rocked up with a 6K camera just as like an extra, and I'm like, oh, fantastic!
Oh my god,
great! So we were able to do a lot more coverage than we expected because of that 2 camera setup, and also
you had 2 camera setups on a short. I think like, oh no, we'll just use the 6K camera. No,
no.
You were doing 2 camera setups.
We had enough cam ops. We had enough cameras to hack it. That's scenes
mental.
So the scenes of the cafe.
I knew you were going to say this.
The scenes of the cafe were recorded both at the same time. The shots.
I think you can tell.
which I think
it makes a difference.
Which is not traditional in a TV show, maybe, right? Like EastEnders or whatever. But on a film set, you're not usually expected to do that, especially in a short film, like student level. So it was a bit of a choice, especially shooting at 2 different resolutions, which I think, if you're being really nitpicky, you can tell. But I genuinely think like it was the best decision, the best call that we made on set was that, because that is the majority of the film. And for all the flaws of the earlier scenes, which I'm happy to pick apart and talk about, or not, the main bulk of the film at the cafe being recorded simultaneously on 2 cameras meant that the performances that we got were so much more sort of raw and honest and real, and like they were able to have a conversation. There's always a common thread, I think, when you've got a camera fixed on one actor, that the actor who's not on camera is not putting in their best work because they don't need to. Right? They don't need to. But then I think in turn, that also affects how the actor who's on screen and on camera is acting. You've got 2 cameras fixated on them both at the same time. They are both putting their all into the performance throughout the shoot. So back and forward, that dialogue between them felt so natural. And I think if I do praise myself, it's for that scene. And I think it's for that, the majority of the film being at that cafe, that back and forward conversation feels so natural and real that is the bit where I'm like, yes, I'm so glad we had that second camera. And I'm so glad we chose to do that, because we could have very easily sacked it off. But there are downsides to that, because in the second scene we had coverage of both actors, and you'll notice, if you've rewatched, you'll probably notice that there is very little coverage in the final film of Robert, the taxi driver, and basically 90% coverage of Chloe as she's sort of shouting and running away, and a lot of his lines are off screen. So the reason to that is it just didn't look good. It just didn't look good. We didn't plan it out well enough, and I think that was the first time we were using the 2 cameras. It's a little bit overwhelming, and we had like a shot reverse shot. The shot on Chloe was a lot better than the shot on Robert, and the shot on Robert back and forward, when you tried to cut it together, it didn't match up. It looked weird. It wasn't breaking the 180-degree rule, but it had that same effect where it was like something just feels off.
Yeah.
So we opted to sort of
breaking the line.
We opted to sort of sack those bits off and just use the dialogue. And although it's not perfect, I do prefer that. So it was the better option. But in hindsight, it's like, yep, some stuff the multicam works for, some stuff it doesn't. And
100%. Like it's nice to have 2 cameras, but you don't always need it. And I think sometimes you lose some stuff with the multiple cameras, because as much as you have 2 cameras, they might be in 2 positions where you don't actually need both of those positions. But obviously, you can't have a camera in the back of frame, so it's like... Well, again, that's about the planning and the blocking and stuff. Yeah, but at the table, it works perfectly. Because
the table is fine.
The way that you're
but when you're outside and the 2 characters are moving and talking to each other, and then one of them walks away...
Yeah,
there were various shots where the 2 cameras were one of the camera guys was in the other shot, and you're like, for fuck's sake. But that's just how it is, because it's just... But again, that's again something you'd fix in hindsight because of like the blocking and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the crew were brilliant and showed up. And another shout out I want to give as well. I mean, the shout out to everyone who sort of works on this. I will talk about Joel and Chris later, because they're involved with the recent edit, after the original one.
We'll get to the post. Yeah.
But I want to say as well to Hessa, who did the storyboard art. Oh, fucking cooked with that. Like it's so good. Like, you don't expect much. It just has to be an approximation. She captured the likeness of both the actors really well, and then went on to make the poster, which I have framed on my desk. It's such a nice poster. I love it so much. I mean, the likeness of the 2 actors is incredible. The just artistic talent to do that is fantastic. And yeah, I'll forever have this on my desk, on my wall, maybe even.
Humble beginnings. I don't know if I call these beginnings, not humble beginnings.
No, but still, like
2 cameras.
All right. I'm so like proud to have it as well, and that's not only is it a great poster and like massive shout out to Hessa, but it's like what a great thing to be able to just celebrate. And I think if you're a filmmaker, no matter what, like get your poster, print it out, put it in a frame, stick it on your desk. Be fucking proud of what you do, whether it's perfect or not, whether you're a perfectionist or not. Like, I picked this film apart because I've seen it 100 times in various different stages of edit and picked it apart numerous times and look at it now and go, oh, I'll go back and change this, I'll go back and change this, I'll go back and change this. You can't. You've got to call it at a point, and you've got to go, look, I'm proud of this, and all the stuff that doesn't work as well, I'll use that as a learning curve for my next film. And that's how it has to be. It's never going to be perfect your first film, but it's...
When my dad used to have his office spaces, he used to have, like, big actual, like, movie poster sizes of the posters for his short films that he used to frame
that's
on
fantastic.
the walls and stuff.
See, I love that. That's so... But I think as a director, you should. And as a writer, you should. I think as a creative, you should be able to celebrate the stuff that you've worked on. And this is what this is. It's like... This isn't me going, hey, everyone look at me. It's going, look, let's give this the launch it deserved. Because it didn't get it at the time. And that's, I think that's everything with the crew.
Happy with crew?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely people I haven't mentioned in terms of like specifics, but they all smashed it and they all turned up. And I didn't know many of them very well, but I think they all absolutely smashed it.
5 night shoots, you'll get to know people. I'll tell you. I'll tell you that much.
For better or for worse, you'll get to know people.
Before we go into the actual like shooting days and going through some of the shoots, I know I've already touched on it. We got to talk about the most important part. Definitely not biased at all. The locations.
Locations.
How do you secure? I guess you've got one main principal location. How do you secure these locations? How do you decide where you're going to go for these locations?
I love this because
I assumed you played location manager as well.
Me and Paolo both did. I'll give Paolo credit. He did secure the
Paolo
cafe.
Location manager. Look, he's location manager,
which is very good. But in fact, actually, we both did the research. Like, he secured that. I secured the scene 2 stuff, and scene 1 was scene 1 was outside of Paolo's house. At like his like uni house, which was great because we could just that was the entire idea. Was there's basically we had 3 locations that we needed. We had 3 key scenes. It's a very simple like act structure. The first scene is the car parked outside of a house. The second scene is the car breaking down and at a roadside, which looks like in the middle of nowhere. And then the third scene is at the cafe, and it was trying to find all these at a thing. And I will say that I think this is probably the best part of our production that saved us the most money, because we barely paid fucking anything for the locations, and that was super helpful because you strike a deal. So the first one, parked outside of Paolo's house, brilliant, because he was using his house as a green room essentially for the actors and stuff like that. And then we could just set up the table outside the front of the house with like a monitor, a video village kind of thing where I could sit and watch the camera feed. And then you've got like the actors in the car and all that sort of thing, and that's perfect. No car moving and all that sort of thing. And then the second bit with the roadside was near our university. It was just literally like the driveway to like a rugby club. So it was a road that led up to like a little car park. It wasn't like a road in the middle of nowhere. Shocker, breaking the illusion. But it was literally just next to like a park and like a ground where it was just like a big field, and at the end of the road was a rugby club. You can kind of see it in some shots, but not really all of them. So the idea was just to make it look, it needed to look secluded, it needed to look far enough away from anything that was open in the middle of the night that it would be realistic for them both to just walk off, right? So there's that. And then the other one, that was pretty easy. We basically I just emailed like a local council and we're like, hey, this is because it's a public ground. It was like, can we use this road on this night and all that sort of thing? And they were just, yes, but as long as you can guarantee that there's not going to be any like loud noises, any like disruptions to the local neighbours, yada yada. And they were happy to give us a night shooting there. And for other reasons, we had to do 2 nights shooting there, so I had to email them on the day after and go, can we have tonight as well? And they were like, which was great. So thank you to I think Brent Council, or was it Harrow Council? I don't know. And then the other one was the pizza and cafe shop. Yeah. My guys, they were the best, because they were basically like, you can have it for free, but you have to buy Sid's food. Cafe, Sid's Pizzeria and Coffee Shop in West Harrow. They were like, you can have it for free, but you need to buy food off us every day you shoot there. And I was like, well, perfect, because we have a budget for food, and
Yeah.
it saves us making sandwiches. We feel like we're treating the crew if we get them a fucking pizza.
Yeah.
Great, pizza party. It's like being in fucking
Totally.
year 3 again. Fantastic. So yeah, it was a sort of win-win with them. Again, they were the pizza shop guys were very patient, because I think they underestimated exactly what the shoot would be, and I think they weren't 100% keen by the end of it, but I think they were very patient with us, and I really appreciate that, because of it being night shoots, because we were getting closer to summertime, we would have to start shooting really about like 6-7 o'clock, and then and then we finished probably about 1 or 2 in the morning. Now the coffee shop closed at 6, I think, so you usually would go home and shut the barriers. What you don't think of is actually when we're shooting there, we need it to look open, so we needed the lights on, and we needed the barriers up, so it looked like the cafe was in the background. You could have that lovely orange warm glow that we had. And they kept coming back to like, oh, are you done yet? Like, to shut it down. And I was like, no, we need a little bit longer. All that stuff. So it's a bit of a negotiation back and forward, but they were very patient with us, and we're incredibly thankful to them for letting us do that. Not only for that, but for free, and then just so we buy food before we head, so they would stay open a bit longer just for us, so we could buy some food, pizzas, whatever, spend a good amount of money on food, and then we could film there for the evening. And it was sort of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and it worked really well, because it was a gorgeous coffee shop, and it was in a park right next to a car park as well, so you could make that natural jump to the end of the film when they go off in the car. Yeah, really great stuff. The biggest challenge, not really a locations thing, but kind of, because it is technically a location of shooting, is the car.
Yeah. Was it a hire car, or did you...
It was hired.
Was it someone's car? Hire car. Thought so.
So I hired it, and I went to pick it up. You may be aware that there are acting restrictions and filmmaking restrictions in the UK, which don't allow actors to actually be driving while they're acting or being filmed on camera. So you have to think of ways around that, and that is hard.
Couldn't get a low loader?
No, funnily enough, no. So the aforementioned rugby club that I mentioned had a lovely empty car park. And the actors, I'll again credit to Charles for doing this. The actor who played Robert was more than happy to act whilst driving in circles around this rugby club. And you know what? It fucking worked. Because I don't think you can really tell in the film that when he's driving around a rugby club. And that is great. Because if we hadn't got that, I don't know how we would have done it. Initially, we were like, let's... It's a great behind the scenes video somewhere. I'll try and find it. But initially we were like, okay, we weren't going to use like a back screen projection or anything, but we were going to make the car look like it was moving, because we were going to have like a light on the end of a pole and just go like that, like past the window. And we tried that. It looked like fucking shit. And there are ways of making that work, but nope, not on a budget. So it was very much a case of actually let's have it look like he's actually driving and not acting, and the car's like moving and all that sort of thing. Whenever he's not being filmed and the car is moving, it's me driving. Yeah, I think it's quite fun. So whenever you see the car like pulling off, or when you see the car come to like a halt, that's me driving.
Who was the taxi driver that comes and picks her up at the end?
That was Guillermo. That was our DP.
I saw it. I was like, "That's crew." I was like,
"That's definitely crew."
Which crew?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, good spot actually. Yeah.
I was like, "There's no way it's a cast member."
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I mean, we've already touched on the shooting days. That's my next kind of thing that I want to go into. Is like, obviously, you did 5 night shoots, which is mental. Obviously, again, doing it in summer, but you are restricted with. As someone who's done night shoots in summer, it is very
well. It was sort of I say summer. It was like April, so it's sort of like it's getting into that, but not quite like And honestly, it was fucking freezing. That was the worst bit. It was probably the coldest April in a few years, because like and we had that dilemma of continuity where one day it started snowing.
Oh shit.
Like, fuck. And it's like a little bit sleety.
April.
And it's like it was that cold. You can see pretty much any of the behind the scenes videos or anything like that. It's like as soon as we stopped rolling, Holly, bless her, had this like huge like blanket like over her, like shivering, and then as soon as like we started rolling off and she's just like in it, like
locked in.
Classic professional. She was great. And I felt so bad because it was so we initially had 4 night shoots. We wanted one day outside the house with the car parked up and then the car like driving off. We wanted one day by the roadside and then 2 days with the cafe, because the cafe was the majority of the film. And that worked really well until we did the second night where we were by the roadside and we realised that actually the audio was entirely corrupted because of the weather. Some water had got into some system somewhere, and basically none of the audio for that day was usable.
Yeah.
We had the stuff in the car before it started, like, I think it was like, it wasn't raining, but it was like light rain, like snow kind of thing.
Is the exterior, yeah.
So it was as soon as we got outside the car, it became so difficult, because then it was like, well, then we realised later on that the audio was like muffled and it didn't work.
Yeah.
The good thing is, I think we called it early that day, because I think Leonardo, who was boom upping, he came to me and he was like, "This, something is up. Like, I can tell, like, something is up here." And then we listened back to it, and I was like, you know what? I think we've got everything we need. Let's wrap it up, and then we can go back to the house and look at this. That night, I was up till 5 a.m. That was a long night. Yeah, because it was like, it was a whole thing of like, we were sat there. You realise you've done your second night, and the next night you're due to go to the cafe. Mm-hmm. And it was like, actually, you know what? I think it was a. Do you know what I think we did? And I think it was quite clever. It worked out in our favour quite well. Is I think we did day 1 and day 2, then a break, and then a break, and then the 2 days at the cafe. But then obviously we didn't have to reshift the cafe around, but we did have to contact the council to be like, can we use the roadside again?
Yeah.
So thankfully we had that gap, but it did mean that no one got a break, which is really difficult. But yeah, I'm kind of glad it went the way it did, and then we got some good stuff on the second day, and I think people were sort of more understanding about it. That was great. But yeah, corrupt audio can't be helped. Just protect your equipment in weather.
Literally,
best thing you can do.
It's brutal, isn't it?
It is brutal out there. Yeah, and then the last 2 days we were at the cafe, and we had some really good long shoots. We had a few things which there's definitely a few things that we shot which have been cut just because it was unneeded or it just didn't work.
Yeah.
We wanted one track.
I think for runtime, 17 minutes for a short film is an impressive runtime.
Yeah.
For like a student short film.
Yeah. Because we aimed for 12.
It's good. Yeah, it's decent. Like, I was quite surprised when I saw that it was like an 18-minute runtime. And that's I think a good thing. Like, it's quite a nice middle ground.
Because you get enough where it's like you get into the story without it being too quick, but then you're not like sat there for like an hour like as like a proper film. Yeah, there's some stuff that we cut just generally because it wasn't working. We wanted like a track, like you'll notice it's a bit where, and I think it actually, to be fair, works perfectly fine unintentionally. Is when the taxi arrives and they get up from the table and walk across. We had a tracking shot coming away from the table, and they're sort of saying a couple more things to each other whilst they go to the car park. You try doing a fucking tracking shot without a gimbal on unstable ground with 2 actors trying to stay on mark whilst keeping them in focus, whilst keeping them in good lighting, which didn't exist. Pointless. That didn't work.
Did you have your own light, or was it all natural lighting?
We had our own lights. Yeah, we had our own lights. You just had to like replicate what was around. Yeah. One tip for lighting: just look at what's there, recreate it. If there's street lights, stick a big studio light under the street light. There's your natural lighting.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the one thing that I struggle with, and I don't have the eye for, is lighting.
I struggle with it, but the one thing I can say is just natural lighting.
That sounds really fucking egotistical, like I can do every department.
That's the one thing I can't do.
It's the one thing that I truly like.
Yeah.
I just cannot see it. Like, for me to learn to light, you would have to just give me like 6 months and just give me every fucking possible scenario to just know, because I find it so interesting and such a talent to be able to look at something and go, okay, yeah, put this here, this can go here, maybe go down a little bit on that, and obviously it looked completely different on the camera. So It's very, 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 very impressive. But all departments are very, very, very impressive, especially the locations department. No bias.
Yeah, we had some natural lights in there. I think we had natural lights in the one.
Also, like the stuff behind when you did at the cafe, like all the stuff in the cafe. I assume
Yeah,
there,
all the like
natural lighting,
all the sort of like orange warm
Yeah.
lighting is lovely, and that really was probably the best bit of lighting we had because it was just
really
good.
nice.
My other favorite bit of lighting, which was kind of natural, incidental but intentional, was the car headlights.
Yes,
I was very keen on having the car headlights light up the scene because it's I always think that's a very nice looking shot when you see it in film and TV, when these sort of car headlights are kind of like low angle lights kind of shining up. And especially the shot where Robert stood in front of the car and he sort of obscures the light and then comes back out of it and the light shines back into the camera. Love that shit. That's good shit.
Yeah.
Gilmore cooked with that one.
Is there anything else you want to touch on for shooting? I know you mentioned before about some things that you didn't really like or you want to change or some inconsistencies. Do you want to talk about them? We can skip straight past them.
I think for the most part I've kind of touched on it. It's just like those like opening scenes really in terms of like how we shot it. There's a bit of a funny story we have is we had like lighting gels. If you don't know what lighting gels are, basically like sort of translucent kind of gels which are like basically color the light that you're using. So if you have like a white light and you put like a red gel in front of it, the light is red. It's simple as that. We took gels with us for the first 4 days of the shoot, and then by the time we got to the last day we thought, we've literally never used them once, just leave them at the house. Right, the one day we needed them the one fucking day we needed them, because we realized that actually when the taxi's driving away from Robert, we need a red light on his face that then goes more subtle.
Brake light, yeah.
Right? Because it's the brake light of the car. As it's driving away, it sort of be like a red sort of haze that then disappears. And it was very intentional because I wasn't in the script, but it was definitely in those early conversations where it was like, I want his veil to shift into how he actually is as soon as that light goes. I want it to sort of be a transition in itself where it's like he is there, he is keeping up that happy face, like that he's been trying to be like strong and supportive like for her, but clearly is going through shit himself. And as soon as that goes, the veil slips and he becomes a little bit more himself, a little bit more emotional. So we had to get it. We forgot the fucking gel. So what did we do to makeshift the light? And you know what? I love the fact that you can't really tell in the film because it looks so good. But actually, I'll give credit to Charles and Charles alone for not cracking the fuck up, because what he was watching as to create this light was a studio light. Now, cafes in the UK, right? All cafes have the little outdoor tables. And what else do you have? You have the giant fucking umbrellas that are put into the table.
Oh my! You put an umbrella in front of
which
the light.
happened to be bright red. So we took one of them. We got about 2 members of the crew to hold it up like fucking Jean Valjean in Les Mis. Open it up, have the full parasol like sideways open with the studio light behind it, and that's what Charles was looking at while trying to act
somewhere.
And you know what?
Surely somewhere there's a photo.
There's not, and I'm really sad there isn't. We didn't. No one thought. I think because we were so stressed about getting it right, no one thought to actually take a photo in that funny circumstance of this is actually quite amusing. But yeah, there's that, and yeah, that was funny. In terms of the other stuff, just generally things change, and I definitely think it's
obviously hindsight's perfect.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, and but you realize as well, it's like we didn't get any coverage of the phone, like the sort of Uber app thing on his dashboard, and we also realized there was no transitional period because we wanted it to be like they'd been in the car for 20 minutes by the time the car breaks down, because it can't break down too early, otherwise she could just walk back home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it needs to be in the middle of nowhere. So it needs to be like 20 minutes, half an hour, like enough. So we had to have like the phone screen, of which I think I made the graphics for. But that was all reshoot. So that was all shot by me in the car of the editor, who we were editing. I was sat with him, and he was editing it, and we were like, we need some in there. And I was like, why don't we just we'll arrange it. And the next night I came to his, and then we went out in his car and just drove around
It works.
like Kilburn, I think it was, with the fucking the phone thing, and it works.
phone,
It's
yeah.
not my favorite shot, and consistency. Sorry, I don't think it looks in keeping with the rest of the film to me, but that's maybe because just I know. Again, it's so hard to tell what actually looks crap and what looks crap.
I actually
because
really liked it,
in my knowledge.
I thought it was a really clever way of doing like a transition.
It's just kind of
I'm
showing-
actually not glazing. Like
Honestly,
this is genuinely, when I watched this one of the things I picked up on was like it's quite a clever way.
Because
Of
how
doing
else do you show? So it was sort of a two-way thing. So
Yeah.
it was one. It was, we'll film some stuff in like almost like a town center where you can see lights and rural stuff, and then the phone is like 50 minutes to go on the like location.
Yeah.
And then the next bit is grassy stuff like trees and stuff, less unnatural lighting from outside.
Yeah.
And then it's like
More money.
20 minutes to go. Yeah, and the money's gone up as well. So it's like little things like that where it's just like you're telling the audience that there has been a time jump here. That's all they need to know, and it's just a way of doing that in the form of like an Uber thing. But I would do it differently
Obviously-
now, but I
Yeah, obviously you touched on your editing there. Let's go into the I know we mentioned briefly at the start, but let's go to the post-production side of it. Because obviously it's kind of been through two post-productions.
two long post-productions as well, yeah.
What is the post-production look like for this? What's it look like for the first one? And especially when you've gone back and revisited it.
So
Who's done it? What's the crack?
So I have
With
Josh to thank. Josh, who did the original edit of the film, and basically is the editor of the film still. There's no denying. It's not like one version and another version. He's the editor for both versions because it was picture locked, right? There was no. When we did the re-edit is simply stuff like grading, mostly sound and dialogue and music.
Yeah.
So the actual picture and the creative decisions of which takes to use, all that sort of thing, that was all done with me and Josh before the first version of the film, and I'm really happy with it. Like it was a good process. He was fucking great at like editing, and we had a really good creative balance. We had a good few sessions where we sat down. It's definitely a 50-50 thing, where like I'm there for half of them, and then he has his own room to do it. Because I like you as a director, I don't think you can be too overbearing. You're not the editor. The editor has experience and has their own creative process, and the editor has a creative say in the film. People forget this. They're not completely under the director's like view all the time. Like the director has the final say, yes, but the editor has creative choices to make, probably the most creative choices in the filmmaking process, I would say, bar the director. I think, or the writer. Like I think it's actually quite one of the most important ones because they're kind of deciding how the final thing looks and how it flows and like the milliseconds here and there that would make that difference. So yeah, I think that was a big part of it. So I was there for half of it, but I wanted to let him breathe for the others, and I think he did a fantastic job with it. The choices that were made, again, as I mentioned earlier, with the sort of like multicam stuff in the second scene, we made that choice of not using any of the coverage of Charles, other than, oh gosh, I feel like I'm like spoiling the process a little bit, but there's a shot in that where it cuts to him and he sort of looks a little bit like depressed and the wind's going through his hair. That's a flip shot from when she's already left. We shot like shots we shot a lot of coverage of him standing in front of the car close up, just looking off, but we shot it from the other angle. So then we just kind of repurposed that because we needed something to go there, because we had two different takes of Holly that we wanted to use back to back, so we needed like a natural break to cut away from, but we didn't have any good coverage of him. So that was the idea. Stuff like that, calls that need to be made, but yeah, we had a really good process and we went through it really smoothly and really well, and I thoroughly enjoyed that process. I vividly remember. This is a very niche memory. I don't know why this is one of the things I remember from this film, but this probably doesn't say much about me in terms of my creative process. It tells you fuck all. It's probably not even interesting, but just something I think you'd find funny. Is I vividly remember playing, like, it was pissing it down with rain, and he was like a couple stops on the tube from me. So, like, I was at home prior to meeting him, and I've spent the whole day playing the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, like episode 3 thing. I'd just finished like the Mustafar level, and I remember I just went out and it was like pissing it down. I was listening to fucking Battle of the Heroes on the train, and I was like, damn, this is fucking great. Going to like see the edit of my fucking film. I've been playing Lego Star Wars. I'm listening to some fucking tunes.
Life's peaks.
It's raining. It's atmospheric. It's
My life
absolute
has
peak.
peaks.
Yeah. That's just not relevant at all, but just something quite funny.
Such a bizarre memory.
But yeah, I think the editing process was relatively smooth. It was the sound and the music that I think I had issues
The music's
with.
so good. If I mentioned at the start, the music's so good for it. Beautiful.
I regret that I can't remember the name of the original composer, but there was different music originally, and it wasn't bad at all. It just was something that I wasn't as involved with that process.
Yeah.
To no fault of my own, we just had to get it done by deadline, and I think it was Paolo's sister who actually composed it, and she did a brilliant job. And I think her name is still in the credits in the thanks, special thanks, because as it should be, she still did a fantastic job and did a really great job with it. But I think when it came to rewatching it myself, I was like, yeah, I do want to change the music up a little bit, because I felt like some bits were just not vibing with me entirely, and I feel like the music was good, but the original music I wasn't as much of a fan of, and I knew Chris from work, who now no longer works with me, but I knew him from that, and I knew he was a musician, and I listened to some of his music when I was writing another project, and as I was writing and I was listening to his music, I was like, damn, this would work for Small Talk. So that was a thing, but yeah, I again, huge credit to that. And the sound mix originally was just it was the sound mix was fine, but it was just a rush job because it had to be done by deadlines. The sort of big thing I think that was the saddest part of this, and the most difficult part I think for me was, and the reason I'm making a big fucking deal of it now, by the way, is because we had our uni course ended and did a graduation show, and despite the fact that I'd spent so much time pushing to have the films, documentaries or otherwise, short films, screened in an actual short film context in a little cinema screening where people could join, watch the whole thing and leave, what they ended up doing was they ended up sticking it on a projector on loop with the other films in a small room that people could walk in and out of, and it was okay, great to have the film actually screened and seen, but I cannot express to you how difficult it is as a writer and director and someone who's been involved in a project for so long and cares so much about it, that to sit there and watch people just walk in midway through, after a couple minutes walk out again, and you're like, the thought and the process I've put into this, and the crew have put into this, the cast have put into this, is just not appreciated. And that was really sad for me. And something that I think probably affected the reason as to why it's been so long since we did it. I think genuinely I just did not want to think about it because it made me fucking depressed, because I think we put effort in and it just never went anywhere. We had some remaining budget left over, and we put that budget into sending it to film festivals, of which it got some screenings, which is great. And it got some nominations here and there, which is really nice. Which is a nice little boost. But the film festival thing, I'm not going to talk too much about that, because it's just that's a topic for a whole other episode at some point. Because that was I had a whole thing at this film festival in Birmingham, the one that I went to. Oh my god, it's like I sat there thinking this in itself is a script for a comedy just waiting to be made. So we'll talk about that at some point, I'm sure. But it essentially was just whack.
My actual next thing, my final thing to mention is, what does the future look like? I didn't realize that you'd put it through the original through. Yeah,
well, that was so. What I did was I put it through the festivals because we had some budget left over. By the time, because when it's at festivals, you can't put it anywhere else. It has to be exclusive screening and festivals only. Yeah. Then it came out the other side of festivals. It had done all the festival run, and then I was like, okay, time to put it on YouTube. I sat and watched it. And I think this was mid 2023. I watched it, and I went, nope. In the original version, you'll notice that the opening starts with classical music on the radio before he switches it off. Initially, I had someone, a mate from uni, who did some voice acting as a news bulletin. I thought that sounded shit. No diss to him. We just didn't do a good job of mixing it in and making it sound natural. So I didn't like that. I wanted to replace that with music. I wanted to replace the music of the film generally. I wanted to really fix up the sound edit because it was just very like all over the place and very up and down. You could listen to it on headphones and like some lines would be entirely in the right and sometimes lines would be entirely in the left, and that's it. That didn't feel right, and I didn't like that. So I spoke to a mate of mine, Joel Felix, who is very good with sound and very good with audio mixing and very good at quality checking stuff. He's got a master's in, I believe, in some sort of audio form thing. I can't remember what it is, Joel. That's just off the top of my head, I can't remember. But you're a very talented man, and there's a reason I went to you. And I was like, do you think you could maybe do like a quick fix up of this? Like, I know I haven't got any money to pay you for this, but like, if you want to just work on this, and I don't know if you want to just like a quick tidy up, I thought, like, do that. And fair play to Joel. And the reason I'll give him a lot of credit is because he spent pretty much just over a year redoing everything from the ground up. He took all of the original audio stems and remixed them, put them in properly. He took all of the ambient sounds and sound effects, remixed them. He recorded new Foley. He went outside and filmed like just natural sounds that you could stick into the background. He did like I think he fried some bacon in a pan so he could do the steam sound effect again. Despite like I just used like a stock one, and he was just like, yeah, I'll do it myself and do it. So he's went above and beyond to make this brilliant, and I really, really have him to thank for that. And then, music-wise, Joel was originally going to do the music. And then, as I said, I listened to Chris's music, and I was like, damn, this works really well. He's very, very talented with his own stuff. Christian Dodd on Spotify, by the way. Go and check him out. And I was like, this is... I want to work with him on this. I want to see... And I had a call with him. He was down. A long creative process with the two of them. I think... We're talking about a year and a half, really, to get everything done from the ground up. But initially I was like, I just wanted a quick fix so I can stick it on YouTube. But now we're at a point where it's had that work put into it, where I'm like, yeah, you know what? I feel good about it now. Let's celebrate it. This is the best version of this film it could be. And I'm really, really happy with it. The music, as I say, is incredible. The sound mix is not something you notice, but... I'll send you the original, Cooper, after this, and you can kind of...
I was going to say I'd actually like to see the original
because
I've seen it, but it's been a long time since I've seen it. It's
different, and I think you'll be able to tell why now. I look at the new one and I'm like, damn, this is so much better. But yeah, I can't remember what your actual question was.
My final prompt. Let's talk about the future of the film. Are we done now? Is this the end of small talk?
Yeah.
Sounds really morbid.
No, but I think it is. I think
it's had its life.
I think
it's
now...
It's just going to sit on YouTube. It's not going to go anywhere else.
I think now it's done. And I think it's... I mean, I filmed it 3 years ago. It's almost 3 years since we shot it. It's been over 3 years since we started writing it. Like, it's been a long process of my life to just get this film out there. Even though I haven't been directly creatively involved like throughout the last year, I've been chasing up Joel and Chris and seeing what's going on. But genuinely, I honestly, I'm happy with it now. I'm not going to put it through festivals again. Like, I've got a screen. But the day this episode comes out, I'll be doing a screening at my place of work, which I'll be shouting about all on social media and all that sort of thing, just to give it an audience and to screen it. And that was the whole idea behind doing a screening, is not to go, hey, everyone, look at me. But because our uni didn't fucking do it properly, let me do it. I'll do it properly. Yeah. I'll give it what it deserves. And despite the fact that I am shitting myself, and we haven't done that yet. I am terrible at what I because naturally when you watch something that you've made and you watch it 100 times, you pick it apart. And as a writer and like as someone who wants to direct again as well, I'm watching it and I'm like, I would write that differently, I would direct that differently, and I can pick so many holes in it, and that's absolutely fine. But the thing is the best thing that's important to remember is no one else does. No one else is really going to be sat there going, oh, look at this. It's only me who's going to be looking at it to that depth and be almost like despising it to that depth. I'm going to be my own biggest critic, so I have to just relax on that. But sitting in a room full of people watching it for the first time, I will be at the back. I will be on my phone, not looking at the screen. I will be terrible.
You do realise you're going to have to sit at the front, because you're going to have to say something before it screens.
I will say something, and I will go to the back. I don't give a fuck. I can't. I just can't. It's really hard for me. I don't know why. I just really struggle to show it. It's the same with anything. It's like if we put a nostalgia bit episode up, and I can't. I just can't. I'll be looking at people's reactions. I'll be God, I'll be the worst.
Yeah. So we've had the future of small talks. What is the future of writer director George Sheard?
Nice one.
Where does it go next?
So I'm currently writing a script with a good friend of mine, Ewan Scholes.
I love how I said this like I don't know what the future of
you know exactly what you're doing. We're writing a script which we intend to film this year. I'm not going to say too much about it because it's not really done yet. But it's essentially a mockumentary, so a very different kind of film, but a film that I'm very excited.
It's literally the complete opposite end of the scale. Yeah.
But we're working on a final draft at the minute to sort of develop, and I am so excited. Like I genuinely like reading it back and thinking of the jokes we're making, and like we're at a point now where you can see the script, and you can see what it will be. You don't know what those final jokes are going to be, what the final exact words are going to be, but you can see now the overall structure and exactly the flow of the film. And I'm looking at it and going, "This is good." And you'd think so because we've been working on this about a year and a half as well.
Yeah.
So this has been another thing where around the time of Small Talks, like being sort of picked up to be edited, like re-edited, is when I started writing this with Ewan.
I have a feeling the night that we sit and you showed me the script for the first time was the same night where we
came out with the podcast. Yeah, it was. I showed you it last year before.
It was last year.
Yeah, about a year and a half ago then. Yeah. It was Christmas 2023.
Yeah.
And that's when we came up with Nostalgia Bit. Also the night I showed you I think it was the first draft of the script. I think it was. Yeah. So that's next. We should be filming that this year, which is really exciting. And again, the experience of writing with someone is really different, but I really do like it because I think it keeps you more grounded. I think when and it's really hard to find someone who you write well with because you can just get annoyed very easily or just be very creatively bankrupt. Me and you, I think, get on really well. We have a very similar sense of humor, but very different tastes.
Yeah.
And we've very much pulled back and forward as to what it should be and we've really refined it to where we're both now like, this is good. And we're both excited about it, and that's really good. And I'm so excited to direct again. I'm so excited to get back into that and to like just the creative process of making a film again, like especially working on Small Talks and getting to the end of it and getting it out there has made me sit there and go, I cannot fucking wait to actually start directing again to do this film. I'm not going to say what it's called or anything like that, or give any details away.
I wasn't digging for information or anything.
And anyway, you've read the script, but I read the script. I'm so excited for it, and as soon as we get more of the ball rolling, as soon as we get like a cast and we get a crew together, and we get some storyboard artwork and stuff done, then it's when it's like starts to feel more like now it's happening, and then I'll be talking about it all over social media because I'm a complete dick and I can't help myself. So fun though. Yeah, I'm excited for that. And yeah, down the line, I'd love to keep doing it. I've always said that I want to write and I want to do more writing. Directing is sort of like a side of that. It's like directing is a sort of experience that I definitely enjoy doing, but is a lot more difficult. And something actually, just to go back to on Small Talks actually, just before we wrap up, it's something that I think that I should have mentioned earlier actually, is a really difficult thing of it is like, especially coming in as like a first time director, you make mistakes and you do underestimate like how people work, and I think that is important to remember. Like, this is a great project and I'm really happy with Small Talks, but like I definitely made faults. There are definitely points I think when the actors are like in a thing, we'll go, okay, we're gonna shoot until this line, and they're happy to keep going, but because I'm a fucking idiot, I'll say cut on the line that we agreed, despite the fact that it's a really emotional line, and if I just kept going a little bit longer, we would have probably got a fucking even better performance, and that's on me. That's on me, and I take credit for that, and I remember things like that, and I'm like, you know what, I'll bear that in mind next time. We'll run until they forget what the lines are. But the interesting thing I found with working with two different actors, both of which have great experience, but very different ages, very different generations and experiences. With Charles, his method was fascinating, and so was Holly's. Holly was, to me anyway, a little bit more method, where I think she really got into the mindset of someone who is suicidal and depressed.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by that. But as someone who is incredibly socially awkward, I am quite light-hearted. I try and use comedy to my advantage, kind of like bounce. Hard to do that with someone who I think is in that place. But I want them to be in that place. I think that's a great place to be to get the best performance. And you know what? It worked. She absolutely smashed it. But it made me definitely think, it's like, you know what? With like the next project that I'm doing, with it being a comedy, I'm like, oh, that's almost like I'll feel a bit more, like I'll be a bit less nervous going into that, I think, which is better. But then Charles, equally, his own acting method, he was able to switch it on and switch it off. He was cracking. He is probably one of the funniest people that I've worked with professionally. Cracking jokes throughout like the stuff, and then able to snap into it and do one of the best like serious performances. Yeah, incredible. We had an issue with in the cafe where in the background you could hear the trains going, and we had to keep pausing for the trains because it was quite loud.
Hold for train.
Yeah.
Seconds for sound.
And I'll send you as well. Like there's definitely like an outtakes kind of like behind the scenes reel, which I'll also upload to YouTube at some point. But I'll send you after this recording, where you get so many bits where Charles is sat there going like, "There's some fucking like specky little boffin sat there going, oh, this is the one, this is the train here, this is the train." It's like, and it's like he's doing that all the time, and he's funny as fuck. But he'd just come off the back of working on the Pentaveret with Mike Myers, so that's another one where it was like, I'm just fascinated by your career and I want to know everything. I'd love to work with him again as well. But yeah, incredible experience. But to wrap it up, I think it's a hard thing to direct. It is really hard, especially as someone who isn't 100% confident in myself and my ability. But I think like the more you do it, the more confidence you'll gain and the better you'll be. And you just learn. You learn from people who have more experience, and people who have less experience, you learn as well. And I think I learned a lot from the process of Small Talks, whether it be the pre-production, the post-production, or the actual production itself, working with these wonderful actors and an incredible crew. To work with people like that, you learn a lot from them. And I think, I especially from a director point, I've learned a lot from the actors there. And I've just can shout about them for days. Brilliant.
Lush.
Cool.
I'll hand it back over to you now.
Just oh god, yeah, it is, isn't it? Just news. Yeah. I feel like I was just thinking, oh god, I hope it's nothing really horrible. After such a nice, like, kind of creative process sort of episode. But I think it's fine. But I feel like the jokes we might make might be inappropriate, which is good. It's always the best sort of new. So if you are new, actually, I will just throw this in. We don't do this very often now because we just expect people do know. But if you are new to the podcast, Just News is a little segment where every week, whatever we're talking about, could be anything, could be serious, it could be lighthearted, could be anything, it could be depressing. But we will finish on a little 5-10 minute segment where we talk about a news story, and one of us reads it to the other who has no idea what the news story is, but the other one deems
not
quite funny. Are you ready, Cooper? This is from The Independent. Sausage vending machines booming in Germany.
I think I've heard about these. I feel like I remember seeing some sort of article or like Lad Bible post about these not that long ago.
So some of the machines sell 3 or 4 varieties alongside punnets of potato salad. Ugh.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
What's the worst that can happen? Very good. Hungry Germans craving a sausage in the dead of night are increasingly turning to vending machines for their bratwurst, brockwurst, and barbecue meats. The machines are booming outside German cities where shops are less likely to stay open for long hours, according to a survey by the German press agency. Especially in structurally weak rural areas, vending machine solutions are becoming increasingly popular, says Heike Richter, an industry spokesperson. There is a strong development towards the vending machine, which is used to deliver meat, milk, eggs, and other products to customers outside of core opening times. You know what? I actually really like that idea. I didn't even think of it. I just thought, haha, funny sausage vending machine. But
question: how do you get the eggs out of the vending machine? Because if they drop off one of the shelves,
yeah, let's get into that. Surely there's got to be something. Some butchers' vending machines sell 3 or 4 types of sausage. They kind of raced over the. Oh, strong development towards it. Maybe they haven't actually got the eggs in yet. They haven't worked out how to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you imagine you get a sausage out of one of these things and it just sort of you get it out? Oh no, my packet of sausages, and it's just covered in like egg yolk, just sort of cracked all over the basin. Yeah.
You know when you like put your hand in to the bottom of the
machine,
you put it in, it's just like a pool of egg and eggshells.
That's just like covered in it. Yeah, rotten as well because it's been there a few days in the heat. Some butchers' vending machines sell 3 or 4 types of sausage and punnets of accompanying potato salad. Yeah, that's German food for you. Yeah, I don't get it. It's like you'll do like sausage, really nice, and then like, but let's have it with sauerkraut. Oh God, no. So customers can buy all they need for a traditional, hearty German feast. Oh my God, they're taking notes nostalgia bit there. Others stock eggs, milk, butter. They do stock eggs and fruit and veg. So all the kitchen essentials are available at any time. There are over 570,000 vending machines in Germany, but despite their popularity, they're expected to complement rather than replace traditional shops operating in areas where a shop may not be economically viable. Vending machines will play a complementary role in brick-and-mortar retailing. Wolfgang Kampminer of the Berlin Brandenburg Trade Association told Berliner Zeitung newspaper, fuck me, in the international imagination, I'm so terrified of butchering names. In the international imagination, unusual vending machines have long had an association with Japan, where they are known to be selling everything from sake to underwear.
Fucking knew this was going to be linked to Japan. Vending machines are so ingrained in Japanese culture. It's unbelievable. Like, you literally go around every corner of a vending machine for whatever you want. They're saying you can get it from sake to underwear.
Yeah.
In Japan. Like, it's crazy.
Underwear's a bit silly. I don't know if I get underwear from a vending machine. Although, I've probably needed that before. That sounds awful. I remember I did a shoot once where I had to, like, get a train, and I wore the most uncomfortable pair of underwear. And it did the absolute worst. Honestly, the absolute worst. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to go to a shop and buy underwear. And I went to M&S in the train station, spent £25 on a couple pairs of underwear, and they were shit. It was shit quality. So I could have done with that. Vending machine selling underwear. Don't think I've ever needed a sausage on the go.
I do wish. I think it would be cool to have these like sausage vending machines. But for now, if I want sausage late at night, I'll just go and see Magic Mike. So I don't need any sausage vending machines for the moment. On that note, thank you so much for watching this episode of Nostalgia Bait. What a lovely note to end on. Yeah, that's going to be in my mind now. Thanks for that. Lovely mental image. If you are new here, please do follow us on Spotify and give us a hearty 5-star review as per usual. If you're on YouTube, you can give us a little subscribe. That would be appreciated. And comment below what your favourite type of sausage is. Not Magic Mike, please. Keep it PG. Come on, we're a family show. We're not. Yeah, we're on all sorts of social media, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, etc. And you can find our podcast episodes on all the best podcast providers, mainly Spotify, YouTube, and then Amazon Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. I actually don't know any. Yeah. We're elsewhere, but you can find us pretty much anywhere the best podcast providers are. We'll be on them. So find us there for our other episodes. And yeah, if you're new here, hope you tune in next week for... If you haven't watched, go and watch Small Talks. Oh yeah, that as well. If you've watched this episode and you haven't seen it already, so by the time when this episode of the podcast comes out, it'll not be on YouTube yet. But stay tuned, and there probably will be a premiere link maybe below. We'll link stuff. We'll link the EP and stuff and all that kind of jazz. So if you want to listen to the soundtrack, which will come out, I believe, on March 6th, and if you want to watch the film, which will come out tomorrow as of like the date this comes out, then yeah, check in the description for links where you can watch these things and take in these things, and yeah, have fun. See you all later. Have a lovely week. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.